Good evening. Our second video on creativity and innovation. I wanted to highlight one more thing about our session mapping tonight. Notably that while innovation and creativity down here mostly relates to developing more effective organizations, that is, more innovative ones, I also placed it under Module 1, developing yourself as individuals and leaders, largely because there's the creativity component. I asked you vis-a-vis the Innovator's DNA article to consider your own level of creativity as a core competency for your own development. With that in mind, I'd like to show you something for next week. Okay. All right, I wanted to raise this to your attention, or bring this to your attention. Next week, we are going to be talking about building your leadership capability or capacity, and there are two things that are due in particular. Well, two things that represent the larger bulk of what you'll be doing. The first is that there's an informational interview that you'll be doing. I had explained this to you earlier. I'm not going to open it, but as I explained to you before, you need to do an informational interview with someone who you either don't know well, or you don't know him or her in a really rich career capacity, or somebody you don't know at all, and get on his or her agenda to be interviewed, or interview him or her for a half hour to an hour, ideally. The goal is not to get a job. The goal is to gain information about the career of somebody who is interesting to you. Let me give you an example. I have thought at certain points about going into administration, that is educational administration, at some point in my career. And if I were going to do an informational interview like this, I would interview the dean of our school, which in fact I'm actually doing next week, or Pamela Davies, our university president, to understand what do the challenges that they face look like, what does it take to be a good leader in that capacity, what does their daily responsibility life look like, what advice would they have for me if I were going to move in that direction. And you're going to write it up afterward in the form that I identified in here. And I want to say I wrote that you could do it either in full sentences or bullet points, notes. It's just got to be professionally written in whatever way you do deem appropriate to write it. And please email me if you have any questions about it. In addition, this leadership practices inventory is also relevant because it is truly squarely, it's an assessment that measures your leadership capability. And what I believe, let me go see if I can get to, this is my daughter on here. Somehow or another, I have managed. All right, bear with me on that. It's the toolbar down at the bottom was hindering me from pulling up what I needed to. This is for next week, and you can see down here that the informational interview is due. So as part of your pre-assignment, I want you to do this. Have someone who knows you well, reasonably well, fill out the leadership practices inventory rating your leadership ability. Meet with that person to review the results. Together, discuss 5 to 10 practical things you can do to be a better leader of others. Take notes, and you'll discuss your 5 to 10 items with your teammates. So very, very practical. And you'll do your informational interview. In addition, there are two things, other things here, one of which is a self-assessment. This developmental network questionnaire is intended to assess your mentoring network. We're going to talk about mentoring and social networks as key to your ability / success as a practitioner / leader. Next class. In addition, I want you to read A Smarter Way to Network, which is pretty short. I want to say it's only like 4 to 6 pages, but it packs a punch in terms of getting you to think about your own network. So I wanted to raise your attention to that now and I'll have sent out an email by tonight also reminding you of that fact. But this is the leadership practices inventory that you'll print out and use with the other person. Here's the informational interview overview, and it's got questions embedded in there. And please, again, contact me if there are any questions. Okay. Now, as we get started here in terms of the IDEO case, I put together 4 videos for you, only one of which is, quote, required watching for the purpose of our case discussion. The first one is the one that would be required, the others are optional. What I'd ask you to do is, before you do anything else tonight, with the exception of listen for a few more minutes to my quote mini assignment on this, I want you to watch this IDEO video. IDEO was hired by, I want to say, ABC News about a decade ago to spend 5 days redesigning something old and familiar like the shopping cart and create a fresh twist on it. So this video is about 20 minutes and it illustrates IDEO's innovation system in action. And it is really cool. It brings to life the case in a way that you may not get to see otherwise. And by the way, there's another one that I didn't put on here, an article that you're welcome to read. This is Business Week's article from 2004 on IDEO, and it's just a really cool article. You can see it there. I'm going to post that for you. These other ones are videos. David Kelly, the head of IDEO, is on a YouTube video, and I think this is a TED Talk that he did, the one that I chose, on how to build your creative confidence. I thought that'd be interesting for you. A gentleman named Clay Christensen is featured in a Harvard Business Review video on YouTube called Disruptive Innovation Explained. The idea here is he's looking at really revolutionary innovations that totally supplant the prior way of doing things. And he is a professor at Harvard, well known. He's written a book on this. He's one of the world's leading thinkers on this idea of radical innovation. And to give you an example of a disruptive innovation, one would be the mass-produced car, which totally replaced, or mostly replaced, even back then, and pretty much has made horse-drawn vehicles or horse-drawn transit totally obsolete. Another one would be Wikipedia, which has really replaced thesauruses as well, totally disrupted the way people look for information. So it's a really cool short video. And then lastly is another a video done by one of the authors of the Innovator's DNA article on thinking like an innovator. So you'll recognize some of the ideas in this. I want to say that, again, this is a 5 to 10 minute video, and it simply expands upon the idea of the innovator's DNA. So you can start to think about, well, what are the kinds of things that innovative people do or creative people do? Once again, these 3 are just optional for you. I just think they'd be really interested for you to think about your own creativity and innovation at an organizational level. This one I'm asking you to watch. Now, as you're preparing to watch this video, I'd like to introduce you to this. This is IDEO's innovation system. It's 4-pronged, and the idea here is that innovation is not just one element. It is an integrated system of 4 things. The first being management. So you'll want to be thinking about, from the case and the video, what is it that management does? What is its style? What does it do specifically? Who does it hire? Well, what kind of turnover does the company have that affects innovation? What kinds of cultural values does IDEO have that make it innovative? How is IDEO organized from terms of like physical layout? Is it tall or a flat organization? Those are the kinds of clues you're looking for there. And then the specific process from quote A to Z. What does that look like? So what I'd like you to do as you're watching the video on the shopping cart is create a paper or sheet of paper with 4 columns. And on the top of each one of the columns, you'd have one of these. as a list or a header, and then you're going to try and create under each of these headers 5 to 10 things that you're drawing from the case or the video, because that's really what's going to get you to dig deep, because people offer or think too simplistically about what makes an organization innovative. So people will talk solely about the culture or solely about a process like brainstorming, but they don't think about the fact that all of this stuff fits together. So that I would urge you to do. Check the time on this. We're actually okay. And now what I'd like to do is get you to think more about the decision itself. Okay, so when you think about the case and what IDEO is trying to do, it's considering handspring, right, the visor. And so it has 3 options, and I would want you to think about which one you would consider. The first option for IDEO is to it's not allowing me to do this very readily. To decline the project. The next one is to accept. I don't know why it is not allowing me to do this. I'm going to have to pause this, and it's possible I will have to start a new video on this one. Okay, let's try this again. Doggone it. Okay. Decline. It does not want to let me do this. Decline. Accept.